The stars held the ancient secrets of civilizations long vanished, of empires that had soared to greatness and crumbled into dust before humanity ever lifted its eyes to the heavens. Across the vast galactic reaches, countless species flourished, each carving out their own legacies, waging their own wars and weaving their own myths. Yet one tale stood apart, a legend whispered in shadowed halls and buried in forgotten archives. The humans, a race so ferocious, so unyielding in their pursuit of dominance, that the elder species had erased all traces of them from history. Some said they had obliterated themselves in a cataclysmic conflict. Others believed they had fled beyond the charted stars, disappearing into the abyss. Still, their memory lingered, a spectral cautionary tale of the chaos unchecked ambition could unleash. For centuries, the stories faded into obscurity, dismissed by the great empires as mere myths, fables to scare nascent civilizations. If such a race had ever existed, they were long extinct. That was until the fleet appeared. The dominion of Ryal had reigned supreme for millennia, its empire stretching across hundreds of star systems, its fleets unrivaled, its technology far beyond its competitors. When their long-range sensors detected an anomaly at the edge of their territory, they assumed it was a stray colony ship or a reckless pirate band daring to challenge their might. They dispatched a single dreadnought, expecting a quick and decisive victory. The crew of the Varkis chuckled at the sight of the approaching vessels, crude utilitarian ships forged from raw metal, scarred by battles long past, relics of a bygone era. The Ral hailed them with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. The response came in a tongue the Dominion had long since purged from their records. "We are humanity. Surrender or be annihilated." Admiral Vren of the Varkis scoffed. It was absurd. Humans were a myth, extinct. Yet as his sensors scanned the incoming fleet, a gnawing unease settled in his chest. These ancient ships moved with uncanny precision, their weapons primed, their formations impeccable. He brushed aside the doubt. The Ral had crushed countless enemies before. With a single order, he commanded the fleet's destruction. It was his final mistake. The human ships surged forward, faster than they should have been, weaving through barrages of plasma fire with ghostly agility. Their weapons, primitive by Dominion standards, should have been ineffective. They weren't. The first Ral ship went offline in moments, its shields overwhelmed by a storm of kinetic rounds. Another burst into flames as an ancient, yet devastating missile tore through its core. The dreadnought, the pride of the Dominion's armada, barely had time to send a distress call before railgun fire shredded its bridge. The battle was over in less than an hour. The humans didn't lose a single vessel. The news spread like a supernova. The impossible had occurred. The myths were real. The monsters had returned, and they were coming. The Dominion mobilized, sending larger fleets, entire armadas. It made no difference. The humans fought with a ferocity and cunning that defied reason, employing tactics the Dominion had never seen. Strategies forged in a crucible of war unlike any other. They didn't seek diplomacy or offer terms. They sought vengeance for crimes lost to time, for the sins of a galaxy that had once sought to erase them. As stars burned and worlds quaked, a single message reverberated through the cosmos, carried by the wreckage of every Dominion fleet that dared to stand in their way. Humanity has returned. The Dominion of Ryal, once the unchallenged sovereigns of the galaxy, now faced an unfamiliar terror. Fear. Reports flooded in from every corner of their empire. Fleets annihilated, colonies reduced to cinders, their once invincible dominion crumbling under the relentless assault of an enemy they had dismissed as fiction. In the heart of the Dominion, Supreme Chancellor Varko stood in his grand war chamber surrounded by his top commanders. Holographic displays flickered before them, each showing the same grim reality. Human warships striking like phantoms, leaving only devastation. "This is impossible," Admiral Tarek hissed, his mandibles twitching in agitation. "These creatures are relics. Their ships are outdated, their technology primitive. How are they winning?" Varkos turned to his intelligence officer, a pale-skinned Varel named Celis, whose trembling hands betrayed her fear. "What do we know about them?" he demanded. Celis faltered. "Almost nothing. All records of the humans were erased long ago. What little remains suggests they were tenacious, warlike. But this," she gestured at the destruction, This is beyond comprehension. Perhaps they never truly vanished, a general murmured. Perhaps they've been waiting, watching, preparing. The word sent a chill through the room. The thought that humanity had not been destroyed, but had instead lurked in the shadows. Biding their time was more terrifying than any weapon. Enough conjecture, Varkos snapped. How do we stop them? Silence fell. No one had an answer. The war was unlike anything the Dominion had faced. They had quelled rebellions, crushed rival empires, and dismantled pirate fleets. But those enemies had followed predictable rules of engagement. The humans did not. They struck without warning, refused surrender, and waged total war, a concept alien to the Dominion. They targeted supply lines, shipyards, and fuel reserves with surgical precision, and worse, they seemed to grow stronger. The initial human fleet had been small, but new warships appeared daily, their origins a mystery. Where were they coming from? How had they built such a force in secret? Then humanity did the unthinkable. They seized a planet. The Dominion had assumed the humans were mere raiders, striking and vanishing. But when the industrial world of Koru 7 fell, it became clear they weren't just seeking revenge, they were building an empire. Survivors spoke of human soldiers unlike any the Dominion had seen, clad in exosuits, moving like specters, leaving no Dominion soldier alive. Koru 7's cities burned for weeks, and when the flames died, the human flag rose over the ruins. Panic gripped the Dominion. Koru 7 was only the beginning. Human fleets struck deeper into Dominion space, capturing planets with terrifying efficiency. Worlds that had stood under Ral rule for centuries now fell to human fire. Supreme Chancellor Varkos could no longer deny the truth. Humanity wasn't just winning. They were dismantling the Dominion piece by piece. He convened an emergency meeting of the High Council, the Empire's most powerful leaders. The council chamber, once a bastion of order, was now thick with fear. We must deploy the Omega-class warships, Admiral Torak insisted. Their fleet is strong, but they cannot match our capital ships. We've already sent Omega-class ships, Silas countered, her voice shaking. They were destroyed. Murmurs of disbelief filled the room. How? Varkos growled. Silas took a deep breath. We underestimated them. Their ships may be old, but their technology has adapted in ways we didn't anticipate. Their weapons bypass our shields. Their tactics are unprecedented. What do they want? A council member demanded. Silas hesitated. Vengeance. The room erupted in chaos. This is madness, one shouted. We are the Dominion. Surely they can be reasoned with. They will not stop until we are extinct, another cried. Varkos raised a hand, silencing them. His reptilian eyes burned with fury. If it's vengeance they seek, we will show them why the Dominion has ruled for 1,000 years. We will burn their worlds and hunt them to the last soldier. But even as he spoke, his words rang hollow. The Dominion had always triumphed because they were stronger. Now, for the first time, they faced an enemy unafraid. For humanity, this war wasn't about conquest or power. It was personal. In the void beyond known space, a new human fleet was assembling. Humanity had returned, and they were only beginning. The Dominion's war machine roared to life. Shipyards worked tirelessly, churning out warships at an unprecedented rate. Recruitment centers overflowed as soldiers were conscripted, their minds filled with propaganda about the Terran invaders. The Dominion had faced rebellions and rival empires before, but never an enemy like this. The humans advanced relentlessly. The Dominion relied on control, discipline, and strategies honed over millennia. The humans fought with chaos, unpredictability, and a brutality that shattered every Dominion doctrine. A single human fleet could appear from nowhere, strike a supply convoy, and vanish, before the Dominion could respond. Their ships moved like predators, targeting vital infrastructure with devastating precision. Then came the ground war. When Koru 7 fell, the Dominion thought it an outlier. When Kethar 4 and Draelis Prime fell in the same week, they saw the pattern. Human soldiers were unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. The Raal relied on advanced drones and automated warfare to minimize casualties. Their soldiers directing machines from afar, but humans fought in the dirt, in the ruins, in the streets. They didn't rely on machines, they were the weapons. Dominion troops accustomed to calculated warfare were horrified. Human soldiers didn't break when outnumbered, didn't surrender when surrounded. They fought with an intensity that defied logic, using tactics that seemed illogical until they succeeded. The worst were the Terran shock troopers. Soldiers who didn't just kill, but hunted. They adapted, learned, and exploited weaknesses faster than any foe. A single human squad could wipe out an entire Dominion battalion in a night, their primitive kinetic weapons tearing through armor like paper. The humans weren't just conquering planets, they were reclaiming them. In a desperate bid to understand their enemy, Supreme Chancellor Varkos uncovered a chilling truth buried in the Dominion's restricted archives. The humans hadn't vanished, they had been erased. Long before the Dominion's rise, their ancestors had encountered humanity, a young, ambitious race expanding rapidly, forging alliances, and mastering warfare faster than any before them. They were a threat, not for their malice but for their relentless drive. So the Dominion's forebears had made a choice: genocide. They burned human worlds, obliterated colonies, and erased all records of their existence, believing they had hunted the last survivors to extinction. They were wrong. Humanity had survived, and now after centuries in the shadows they had returned, not as conquerors but as avengers. The war wasn't a conquest, it was a reckoning. The humans weren't here to dominate. They were here to settle a debt written in blood and fire, one the Dominion had forgotten but humanity had never forgiven. Varkos stood in the silent war chamber, staring at the ancient records, images of burning human cities, reports of a calculated extermination. The faces of his ancestors stared back, their decisions condemning their descendants. The humans had every right to despise them, but this wasn't hatred, it was retribution. A chime shattered the silence, an emergency transmission. Admiral Tarek's face appeared, his expression hollow. "They're here," he said, voice trembling. Varkos stiffened. "Where?" Tarek swallowed. "Here, on Viral Prime." The room froze. It was impossible. The humans were still in the outer colonies. They couldn't have reached the Dominion's capital so quickly. But they had. Alarms blared as tactical maps filled the chamber, showing red markers descending from the void, human warships larger and deadlier than anticipated, bypassing outer defenses entirely. They weren't here for another battle. They were here to end the war. The skies above Viral Prime erupted in flames as human dropships pierced the atmosphere. Anti-air defenses roared, but it was too late. Stealth craft had already infiltrated orbital stations, turning Dominion defenses against their own fleet. Warships exploded in low orbit, raining debris onto the capital's cities. On the ground, panic consumed the streets as citizens watched their invincible empire collapse. Human strike teams emerged from the smoke, fighting with relentless efficiency. They crippled power grids, communications, and military coordination within hours. Entire districts plunged into darkness. Varkos stood in his war room, watching the nightmare unfold as his admirals issued frantic contradictory orders. It was futile. The Dominion was losing. No, humanity had already won. Varkos had one final card to play. "Prepare the planetary annihilation protocol," he said coldly. The room recoiled. "Chancellor," Silas whispered, "that will kill billions, our own people." "If we cannot hold this world, neither will they," Varkos replied. But before the order could be issued, the war chamber's doors burst open. A figure stepped inside, flanked by two human soldiers in jet black armor. Varkos recognized him from the ancient archives, a descendant of the massacred race, a human. The man carried his helmet under one arm, his eyes burning with a chilling certainty. Varkos clenched his jaw. "What do you want?" The human smiled. "Justice." Outside, Viral Prime burned. The Dominion fell in a single night. For centuries it had ruled with an iron grip, its power unquestioned. But none of that mattered. Humanity had come not as conquerors or diplomats, but as executioners, delivering a sentence long overdue. The war ended not with treaties or negotiations, but with silence. By dawn, the Dominion's high command was gone. Varkos, his admirals, his war ministers, all executed. The humans offered no mercy, no words, no hesitation. The judgment had been passed centuries ago. This was merely its execution. The streets of Viral Prime were eerily silent after the final battle. The Dominion's towering spires lay in ruins, smoke rising from shattered buildings, their banners trampled in the dirt. Above the tallest tower, the flag of humanity flew. Across the galaxy, Every Dominion-controlled planet received the same transmission. A human commander stood before the camera, clad in battle-worn armor, his voice calm but resolute. "The Dominion is no more," he said. "Your leaders are dead. Your fleets are gone. Your empire has fallen." He paused, letting the words sink in. "For centuries you ruled through fear. You erased our history, tried to erase us. Yet here we stand." Images flickered on the screen. Surrendered Dominion soldiers led away in chains. The humans had spared those who hadn't resisted, those uninvolved in the genocide, but they would never rule again. "We do not seek to replace you," the commander continued. "We are not here to build an empire. We have reclaimed what was stolen from us. Nothing more. The galaxy is free from Dominion tyranny. What happens next is up to you." The transmission ended, and with it, an era. The Dominion's collapse sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Worlds long under its rule tasted freedom for the first time. Some celebrated, others descended into chaos. Rival species vied for power, but none dared challenge the humans. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity had survived extinction, and they would never be forgotten again.